All right. Hello and welcome back to Baited Expectations. I'm piebypie and I'm joined with KittenCatNoodle, Brittleknee, and Velyna, and we're really excited to get into the newest announcement around Path of Exile's expedition expansion. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Anyway, we have a lot to get through today, so please make sure that you like, follow, comment early before you forget. And before we get started, let's catch up with everyone. I have an awesome sort of set the context question for you. So, what have you been up to, and what has your favorite Path of Exile meta been? It can be time that you played or time that you didn't play, but I assume if you played, you're probably going to be more attached to it, right? Let's start with Noodle.
Yeah. What have I been up to? I don't know. I had work. I had a lot of work, which has been not so awesome. Remember if I was on the front page of Path of Exile news in between these times, but this is your friendly reminder that I was on the front page of Path of Exile news for my lore with PoE2 stuff, so that was exciting. That was super cool and kind of a little like, are they featuring me because I got some guesses about what's going to happen in Path of Exile 2 correct? Or are they featuring me to taunt me with forbidden knowledge once again? Because it had to do with the abandoned or just decidedly not included Nanette contracts. So it was very exciting and such an honor. And yeah, I mean, besides that, I've been playing some other games, you know, trying out some other stuff before we get back into League. Favorite Path of Exile meta? I mean, kind of biased, but I really liked when Arc Traps was a big thing, mostly because so that was like incursion. And that was really exciting because I saw the patch notes and I was like, ooh, arc buffs. And then I was like, ooh, trap buffs. And even though basically everyone and their mom figured out the same thing that I did, it felt really cool to put something together from the patch notes as a new build and have it really, really work. And it felt really good. I got featured in Build of the Week. And then, of course, it was destroyed promptly after the end of Incursion. They for some reason decided to nerf traps instead of arc at that time, but it was still like it just feels really good when you look at the patch notes and you look at the numbers and you're like, yes, I have ideas, and then they are actually good.
Let's go to Brittleknee. What was your favorite Path of Exile meta, and what have you been up to?
I remember when bows were good. That was probably my favorite time. But I don't know, there's some new stuff coming down the line, so maybe it'll be a little bit more exciting. The little lightning arrow thing in the ground looks interesting, but I miss Cold Scourge Arrow. I miss it a lot. It was a lot of fun, just the combination of like the actual sort of like kinetic feel of actually firing an arrow. So like the drawback and let off versus like the way I shot is, which is you just barfing projectiles everywhere with a bow like in your hand and there's no actual like archery feel to it. So I think that's probably one of the things I like miss the most is like gratuitous shatters and actual sort of like archery feel, which is like the two things that made that my favorite. And as far as what I've been up to lately, is I've been super duper sick. I've had like health issues, and then on top of it, got some sort of like crud, not COVID or anything, but just like this awful sort of like sore throat cough thing that turned into like the sinus infection from hell. And I'm finally getting over it after losing my voice for like 3 or 4 days. It was insane. And I've been working on getting the No Stone Unturned in All Ears achievements because there's some of the last ones that I don't have. And there's never been a better time to waste time playing PoE, waiting for the new league. So it just seemed like a good thing, nice, easygoing sort of content while I wasn't feeling the best, and something I kind of wanted to do anyways.
Uh,
So
a
sorry to hear
fellow
you being
lore
so sick.
master.
It's been really interesting to go back and hear a lot of the voice lines. We discovered that, like, Greiger's dialogue in Act 3 is, like, some of the most disgusting stuff in the game. Like, I'm pretty sure they made that voice actor read all of his, like, lines with, like, something in his mouth, like a spoon in his mouth, because it's, like, all opened mouth and wet and gross, and, like, I just, like, was shuddering the entire time, like, "I can't wait until this is over." But there is actually a lot of dialogue that was really interesting between the 2 of them, like, place-setting dialogue that I'd never pay attention to. Things that I'd learned from your videos, but, like, never really put the 2 and 2 together. I'm like, "Oh, they talk about it, like, literally right here. Oh."
Yes.
Velyna.
Well, I gave up on my challenges at 36 because the task manager never wants to show up, and so I hate his guts and I hate that whole league. I'm really glad it's over and not coming back, at least for the time being. Then I went back to Final Fantasy 14 after taking a break for a year, and I got my other healers leveled, and I haven't left the golden saucer in a week, so I'm doing really good. I've been gambling a lot. It's been really successful. I've been chocobo racing. I've been breeding my chocobos. They've been becoming this reddish pink color. They're really awesome. So yeah, that's basically what and I've been working on my YouTube. I took some time off this week, and I've been working on my YouTube. And I have a new cat, as you can see her. She's right here. Her name's Molly. She's right here, and she's a hellion to poor Mr. Kitten because she's small and in charge. So that's what I have been up to generally.
I like the
Oh, my
small and
favorite
in charge
meta.
energy. That's a good energy.
Okay, I'm gonna get really hipster with you guys when I say my favorite meta. Cyclone. But no, sort of.
Which
But
one?
sort of. But uh which one? That's a good question. I mean, cock cyclones are always solid. I had one in Abyss that was really good, but that's not even the one I'm thinking of. I was half joking with Cyclone. It is my favorite skill of all time just because it feels the most fluid. I even liked it when it was like clunky and trash. But this was a really old meta that lasted like three leagues or something, then they killed it. Lightning strike on a Templar before ascendancies.
I
It
think you've
was
mentioned that one before.
so because it was amazing, and they need to bring it back. I think actually they did fix my lightning strike, so it doesn't get stuck on pebbles anymore, so it's actually good again. And if that's the case, I'll probably try it again. I'll probably do that.
And me, what have I been up to?
What have you been doing?
No, I have been taking a break from gaming type stuff and mostly focusing on I'm nearly finished my UX design course, which means that I can come back and revisit the work I was doing on the Path of Exile map tab, and actually share that with people. I'm really excited to have the time. And also I have been locked down in Sydney. Sydney is having a really tough time of it with COVID cases, and it's been hitting differently to previous lockdowns. Like I feel like I coped better the other times, but this time I'm just like, wow, I live alone and I can't leave my house. Anyway, I was thinking, I was like, oh god, I'm so much more interested in what you guys think of as a favorite meta, because I can't think of what my favorite meta is. So I'm just gonna like word vomit through it and maybe get to an answer at the end of my word vomit, if you don't mind me trying to figure that out. I was thinking about how in Legion, Cyclone was a full screen, and that was fun. I kind of really liked Sunder, old Sunder, which just went that was a good time. And I do need to give BK her dues. I had a really good time with some kind of ice arrow. I can't remember which one it was, but with shattering things.
Shatters are good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fuck, like that's how long ago it's been since I've played any elemental arrow build, because I can't remember the names of them. They're not worth playing. And I do want to say a brief word about a meta that I didn't get to play in, but I'm sad that I missed out on it, because I think it got nerfed before Legacy League, and it was like old poison. I really would have loved to play Old Poison.
The double dipping poison nonsense of old. Yeah, that was like completely unethical.
Oh God, I would have loved to play that. So yeah, that those are things that I've appreciated. um, all right. So the order of the episode that we're gonna do, we know there's a really juicy topic of like balance changes, right? But we're gonna put that one last so that we can spend as much time on it as we like and don't have to worry about fitting stuff in ahead of it. So we're going to like really rapid fire go through a couple of shorter topics. So the shortest topic, I think, is the Path of Exile Royale random thing that they've brought back, got announced and went live on the servers yesterday as part of the end of the announcement. What was you guys' reactions when you saw that in the like table of contents or whatever for the announcement? BK, you want to start?
Sure. We sort of knew it was coming from hints that Bex had dropped because they had done some testing like within GGG, I guess, because I guess they had finished it at some point in time and then were putting it through playtesting. So we knew it was probably coming back soon, but the way that it came back was actually really refreshing and honestly surprising. What I was expecting was more or less like bringing the old code up to date, and what we got instead was an actual like game mode, which is more like PvP adjacent than racing adjacent, but nonetheless, like it's really cool to see them do some sort of like event development in general. And hopefully that means that maybe there'll be some racing stuff on the horizon if they start, like maybe by starting these weekends, they start other events. And with other events, maybe that brings back old school racing. I don't know. But it was really cool to see them actually put some thought behind it. The new passage tree and everything that is like catered to that is really cool. I think something similar for like the actual PvP stuff would be really neat too. Um, just like to kind of like simplify it a little bit and then allow for better matchmaking for the people that still like it. We've had some PvP events at the end of different racing like events, specifically Havoc's events, and they've all been like pretty good fun. But yeah, it's really cool to see it back. It's really cool to see it implemented with thought behind it rather than something that's scraped up just for like popularity's sake. And I hope that it continues to be refined and supported because I think this is basically going to open the door for getting a lot of the old stuff that we miss back.
Noodle, I see you nodding. Do you have some reactions?
Well, yeah, I think BK basically covered all of my thoughts except for the only thing I would add is that finally, like I just feel like we've been asking for this basically since it happened as a joke.
Mm.
And the big thing to me is like the PvP is basically a joke in my opinion. I'm sorry to the like 9 people who play PvP in the game. I'm not trying to insult you. It's not your fault and I'm not trying to insult anything, but like it was there was such a, you know, when it came out as a joke, we were all like, "Oh, that was actually super fun." And so, as BK said, I'm happy that they decided to not just put it back in as it was and actually put some more thought into it. But yeah, my first thought was like, "Good." Like, thank you for listening. We've been asking. We were happy to have basically the very janky outline version and they put some thought into it and I really do hope that they consider implementing this as if not a complete replacement for a supplement to the current in-game PvP but also as BK said if they have other events kind of similar special weekend events or end of league events, you know, if this is opening the doors for that, I'm here for it. Let's spice it up. Let's put some flavor on it.
Val, you're muted.
I forgot. I'm a kid screaming outside all the time. I'm of two minds on this one because on one hand, I'm like, "Yay, battle royale! We've wanted that for a while," and on the other hand, I'm like, "Oh, this is another system that's done instead of working on the other." I'm kind of jaded, so
Mm.
I'm kind of jaded
Mhm.
when I feel like there's a lot of other things that need work on, and then we just have this battle royale mode that's like Yeah, it's nice, and maybe it will help people stick around near the end of League when, we're all, like, exhausted 'cause we've been playing 50 hours a week, grinding something, you know? Just endlessly, wake up in the morning, what am I gonna do? Turn on Path before I even get coffee, you know what I mean? So it's, yeah, I like the idea, but I also don't like the idea. That's where I'm at.
I think it's particularly good that they encapsulated it and kind of made it its own thing because it means that it's sort of removed from any sort of balance tweaking or anything else that would be needed in like the base game.
Yeah, but
And
I
like
still think
hopefully subsequent maintenance is like nothing but like balance tweaks and nothing else. But
I
yeah.
feel like if Battle Royale was the reason we waited longer to do the teaser or the teaser, then it wasn't even, like, why, you know?
Oh, I see. I think
Yeah.
the teaser stuff was more or less just because Bex isn't at the helm of that anymore is what the explanation was given.
Yeah. Yeah,
She's like super big boss lady now.
I mean, yeah, she's kind of a
Yeah.
big deal, you know what I mean? So she's kinda head hon well, no, sorry, Chris. Sorry, Chris, Bex is head honcho in our hearts.
Did she actually
Yeah,
step
yeah,
into a
that's I
new
was gonna
role?
say that. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Did she actually step into a new role, or is she just?
They called her marketing manager in the
Mhm.
Yeah.
Q&A, which
Yeah,
is,
that's what I heard.
that sounds like something that's big over both like community outreach and actually working with marketing stuff as well as far as like out news outlets and some of the arrangements that they've done with streamers and all that other kind of stuff in addition to like what she handles or oversees as far as the community side.
She's Miss Manager now.
I
Yeah,
So my
boss
biggest
lady.
regret at ExileCon was like I've mentioned this before that I had mad imposter syndrome and I didn't really know how to talk to people about PoE, but I was pretty deep in like working in like the gaming marketing side of the industry from my jobs and from being a streamer, but also my actual work. And I remember flying back home and then going like, I have so many questions about how they organize like launches, all of the marketing stuff, because I couldn't see anyone identified as being responsible for that. And if it was Bex then, or if it was Chris or someone, I really wish that that was what I had the opportunity to talk to people about instead of like, you know, if you don't feel comfortable talking about the game itself because you're not really like confident in your own knowledge of the game, at the very least talk about a thing that you are confident in. So that's my advice to myself. And I will say my reaction to seeing Royale on the list, I was surprised because I kind of just thought it was this carrot thing. They were like, yeah, you'll get it soon, and just keep dangling it forever and ever, and it just not being important. Then like, oh, they're making PoE mobile, they're making PoE 2. Like, when are they going to get the time to work on this? But then at the same time, this is Nerf League, so I'm like, ooh, did they time that really specifically because they needed to give us something good to like try and ameliorate the blow of something bad?
They're trying to bribe us? This
Yes,
is
they
what you're
are. They're trying to bribe us. And then my third thing is like every weekend, like, is it gonna see that much play? Is it gonna go like whoop, or is it gonna like gradually see more play as people burn out? I'm really curious. I hope they fucking share the data with us.
I'm sure
They
they'll
will,
share
but
the
like
statistics.
I love analytics and things like that. So I'm just like, give me the
People tend
numbers. I want to know.
people tend to get really competitive in these things, like, "Oh, I know that fucking guy who killed me last week."
Hmm.
You know? Like, that's kind of it. So I think it
It's
gets
so
good play.
funny watching all the races play it right now, like before Blitz. Blitz is soon, right? Or has it been? No,
Yep.
Blitz is soon.
It was last weekend.
Oh shit. Okay, my bad. So yeah, all the races are playing it, and they're like, yes, and I'm like, are they distracted from like practicing for league start because of this? But yeah, it's only on for the weekend. I haven't had a chance to play myself, but I was watching Mathel earlier, and he was like, yeah, I started with Blight on this game that he was playing. He started with Blight. He didn't level up or anything. He didn't get any weapons, and then he picked up a Cyclone, and he had 2 white weapons and won the game somehow. So,
That's Cyclone for you. It's top dog.
okay. So, let's get into expedition. It's really tragic that the name of our show says expectations, and then the name of the thing is expedition, because my mind keeps wanting to say the other one. Anyway, um, so. I saw Noodle was trying to guess the name. Did you guys have any guesses for the name before you found out, or and get any closer? I know Noodle was close. Vel or BK?
So close.
I never even attempt to guess. What did I say? No, I'm not even gonna tell you what that stupid it was not a legitimate guess. I had none.
I go full hermit because I don't want certain things to be spoiled. And so there's like this one Discord that I have to be a part of for some of the guide writing that I do, where Elite got there. I think it was for Heist, and they were already talking about it. And it was like a day or something before the announcement. And of course, it was one of those leagues where like it absolutely gives away the whole like premise. So I was like fucking pissed about it. I'm like, I'm sorry, I understand that you employ me, but I'm muting this server at me, bitches, because I can't stand this. And so yeah, like when these things happen, I just go like underground. I don't look at anything until like it's the actual official release, because I just don't want it spoiled for me. So I had no expectations, and I had no expectation ideas or guesses.
Yeah, I didn't have
I just
any
like being
guesses either.
surprised. I just like having like the full experience when it's time.
I'm like the opposite. I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, what do those banners mean? And like, ooh, what is that person walking in this specific area? What is that? What does it say about their intentions as an NPC? And like, I honestly was kind of surprised that I was even close because my guess was excavation because I was like, oh, it looks like a dig site, like an archaeological dig site. If you watch, like, I don't know, any kind of documentaries on like Discovery Channel and stuff where they're like brushing bones or whatever, I was like, oh yeah, it kind of looks like that. So that's going to be my guess. But that was literally all I had to go off of. I watched Badger's video and Tarky's video trying to figure everything out. And I was like, I have no idea who these people are, but they're digging. And that was basically my whole process for it. But I will say, when they showed, when you put the explosives and you get chests, they're called excavated chests. So I'm going to take the win on this one and just say
That's
that
true.
basically right.
Yep.
Pat, 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 pat.
I have fun like looking at the characters. I normally don't like to speculate from teasers, but this is the first time where like you got four main NPCs that you could sort of try and analyze. I couldn't for the life of you tell me what I had noticed at this time. It's completely gone from my mind. But yeah, no, I never try to guess the name. Anyway, what is your overall impression of the league? Does anyone have like any crazy big reactions? Like, I'm gonna say mine actually. I'll lead with mine, and then somebody can jump in and argue with me. I think it's fine. I think the explosive, like the actual assets for the explosives, just look exactly like Harvest's pylons. So that's giving me some mad flashbacks, and like I mean, I like the NPCs and the sort of the lore elements of the new area and new people, and possibly the idea of like bringing people back from the dead and stuff. But the actual game mode, I'm just like, okay, it's an opportunity to kill people, and I'll do it. But I don't know if I'm gonna especially love this. Maybe making explosions is gonna be good though. Anybody else want to go?
I do normally like explosions. I will say that. Normally explosions are pretty cool. Just talking about like impressions of the league. I I hate to say this, but I really don't have a strong opinion. Like I feel very meh, and it's not even like I'm conflicted. It's just I don't really have anything that I'm gravitating to, and I feel kind of weird about that. And part of me thinks that maybe it's just because in the way that they presented it, it felt like they were trying to show very minimal levels to not overset expectations of things like loot or skill ability, but I found myself just not really gravitating towards any particular thing they showed. I think that um there I expect that there's a lot more potential than what I saw, but when they're showing setting up the charges and it seems pretty slow, and then they blow up the chests and it's all white loot, and then there wasn't that many monsters to fight, and obviously they can't show us boss fights, and I'm happy that they're not showing us boss fights. The bosses look really really cool, but I still just I feel like they veered away from show like setting expectations too high to where I just am kind of not like, nothing grabbed me, and I think
Mhm.
it's a cool concept, like, I with the lore stuff, I can kinda save the lore stuff, but I will say anytime that it's something completely new, I get a little bit like, I don't know if it's gonna be good because I have no basis to go off of. It's like, "Here's these new people, and they're coming, and there's a potential that this is a complete non sequitur to everything else we've talked about in
Mm.
terms of the lore," and so, yeah, I can save that because I have a little bit of a, you know, rant in a good way. Like there is actually potential for it to be really cool, but it was completely again, it was not shown. And so I feel like they held back. And so it kept me from having really any feelings about it. I don't think it looks bad at all. That's not what I'm trying to say, but I don't know what to expect right now.
Mm. I'm not into it. I'll tell you. I'm not into it. The explosions look slow and clunky. Oh, do I have to pick up more splinters again and then give it to some bullshit NPC to get some 3 fire resist chest piece that I know I'm gonna get? It's like, "Oh, well, you'll get more fire resist from these," like, you know what I mean? Like, and not only that, I had somebody tell me, "Oh, this is gonna be, like, a great way to mess with NPCs giving you, like, crafting options." I'm like, "Dude, we had that. They were called masters, and they were in our hideout, and then we did a quest every day, and we got a special item if we wanted it. So, why are we doing this again? And why are we bringing on new currencies and new splinter forms and new fucking bullshit that I just don't really wanna like, I'll do it, and then but I'm not happy about it, and then give me some weird ritualistic, like, shit on top of that, like, oh, now I have all these points and then I can buy this like, I don't care about any of that shit. Ritual is good, yeah. Yeah, sure. But now you're just putting, like, 3 mechanic it's just dumb, dude. Like, I don't know. I'm more interested in the skill, options. I have, opinions about this. I'm very, very, very interested in if every nerf destroyed all of my builds that I have actually took time off this week to record videos for, you know?
Oh
So that was
no.
really fun. That was really, really fun. I was like, "Okay, please, the only one that might be affected the most is the cock. Please only affect the cock. I'm begging you." You know, like, I'm begging you to give me that headspace. But overall, yeah, I'm like, I'm not into the league mechanic. I think like, I know, this is the time where everybody's like, "Give us some bullshit league and then work on quality of life."
That was
I
last
kind
league.
of feel like yeah, well, but that's what people have been want they say it every league, they still want it. They still because it's not done. Remember last league how okay, yeah, first we had the problem at the beginning, but then after that, we had huge graphical issues for, like, 2 fucking months that made it almost unplayable. Do you guys remember that? Like,
Yeah.
how we work on the fact that there are major issues beyond the issues, and then, like, so it still isn't fixed, and therefore yeah, so I you know what? I bet I'll play the first week and I'll be like, "This is amazing, I can't believe I hate it," but, like, right now, I'm just like, "Ugh." Like, that's how I feel, I'm just, "Ugh." Yeah, yeah, like, we need like, there has to be much larger quality of life changes in the game, and I feel like we got a league full of more bloat nonsense and, some balance changes, which is desperately needed, though. Balance changes have been needed for so long, but everything else is just like yeah.
All right. let's keep it back to expedition so we can like cross that one off the topic list. BK,
Mhm.
first impressions and thoughts.
I actually am kind of excited. I feel like I'm maybe the only one, but I feel like this is a systems league more than anything else, and they're testing different systems. They're testing like our skill systems. They're testing sort of like this new sort of barter mechanic sort of thing. In addition to like a lot of the different league bits and pieces are kind of like a greatest hits tour, where they're taking a lot of stuff from other leagues and kind of highlighting different aspects of it. Like if you look underneath like the architecture of Expedition League, you'll see a lot of delve and synthesis there, where there's like at its core, it's something that happens in your map that you interact with in a certain area, and then it has this other area that is not like adjacent to the map where you go somewhere else to do something. The rewards are tiered pretty various. Like you have sort of like your little crap rewards, which are going to be like the small chests and whatnot in the like the actual map encounters, where nothing's like too amazing. But then you have these things that you actually put into the map device that go to other expedition sites that are more like your blighted maps, or your pieces for the synthesis league, like the puzzle pieces, or even like cities in Delve, like where you have like more concentrated reward areas. And then on top of that, you have the hierarchy of the actual bosses being present again, which is really nice. For me personally, I love new boss fights. So anytime they're ready to bring those in, I'm just always excited to fight. And it seems like they're not going to be RNG this time, that they actually like show up on the map itself, and then also is like a chance of happening. So that's really awesome. And
I
so
agree. The
like
bosses.
I'm just across the board, it feels like a systems league where they're just really trying to fine tune and understand what people want out of like the different systems of Path of Exile. Is it a lot of crazy gyms that can like basically all perform at a similar level, or is it like, do we have to continue this meta chasing thing where certain skills get buffed and certain ones don't, some things get nerfed to the ground? Or is it okay for everything to perform at like similar levels and people get to choose their favorite? Is like, instead of having stuff being complete upgrades being completely reliant on trade, like is this interesting to interact with vendors in a way that changes that like entire experience, like where you have a vendor that's basically offering you crafts rather than trying to do like harvest stuff, so you have this currency that's tied to that. There's like a little bit of like gamble stuff. Like I am not a haggler, so I'm not looking forward to that one at all. Like I'm just like, take the full currency. Like I don't even like, I can't even be mean to the NPC and like undercut him. It's gonna be like the worst league for me in that regard. But it's sort of taking these like different systems from other leagues and really kind of like cherry picking what I think is the best of it. The only thing that I'm concerned about is fuse time. So I think like we'll be able to hotkey the actual circle of placing the explosives, but like that fuse time and the time that it'll take the monsters to actually emerge from the ground, if they don't give that some real thought, a la like that they had to do for Harbinger and Abyss League specifically, where they had to tune how fast the monsters came, um, there's going to be some pushback in that regard. Like I don't think it needs to be like like ultimatum levels of like, here's like 50 fucking rare monsters in a 2 foot space and huzzah, like enjoy your monsters. But like there definitely needs to be some uh some like pacing to it.
You
And
don't
I
want it to be like that one delve node where you just do the row of things and you don't do them all at the same time, you're just waiting, like
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, and to me I look at it as like, yes, maybe the league mechanic in its design is a little safe because that it's like kind of just the greatest hits tour, as I keep repeating. Um, but I think that is because of everything else they're accomplishing this league as well. Sort of like how the reason why Ultimatum felt a little lackluster is because it came in conjunction with a lot of the sort of quality of life and reward updates that we were thinking, or we were all hoping for. And so we see like a couple of other sort of like major system overhauls here in addition to it. Because like Flash discussions have been on the table since I started playing Path of Exile 4 years ago. And we finally have like some sort of alternative to it. Is it going to be bad? Is it going to be good? I don't know, but at least they're addressing and trying to address the problem. But first impressions, I'm actually excited. I think it'll be pretty neat, and I'm really, really, really excited as someone who concentrates more on build creation than anything else to have so many new different like things to play with. And honestly, I'm kind of excited about the I know like the support gem stuff. Like I know it sucks that all the damage ones are getting nerfed, but actually having the ability to make arguments for use cases is going to be is pretty exciting for me. Utility use cases are like I don't know, it's neat.
Hold that thought because we're going to come back to balance changes. Okay, so I've got here a couple of things that kind of stood out to me from the announcement regarding things that are expedition specific. Let's go through this really quickly so we can move on. One of the really contentious points was that some of the monsters will have immunity to stuff. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I'm not phased by monsters always, immunities to stuff. Like, maybe, you know what? Maybe you'll just invite your friend that deals the opposite damage. Now, I doubt it because you know how party play is, but, maybe you will. Also, you don't have to blow it up, so,
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah, I think the fact that you can choose, and unless there's like some holy grail at the end every time, and that's the one that has immunity, but even then I'm kind of like, well, sometimes you can't just get everything and do everything, you roll a map, you vol it, and then you can't do it anymore. This is just kind of the way it is, and I think it's totally fine that you can't just
Yeah, I think
get
it's a
everything.
balance between damn it, I can't and oh look, I can do this one. And I guess that's like the variability that they're trying to inflict there by having these sort of shutout situations with certain ones.
Okay, someone's making me try and clarify it. So, for those who haven't seen the announcement, the things that you bomb can grant the resurrected monsters some immunity. So you have to choose that one. It's not that, like you arrive at a space and they'll just have immunity.
Yeah,
No, that's
you'll
Right.
see it beforehand
yeah.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
a decision you have to make.
Okay.
and read
Like, I
about.
guess.
Items that grant ward and also new monsters that have ward and ward in general, which is a new defense.
Ugh.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
That's how I feel about it. Ugh. Jesus Christ, dude. Okay.
I don't know. I think it sounds kind of interesting. I like playing with new stuff, but it sort of just reminds me of the Aegis or however you say it that we have for Elementalists now. Something similar to that, or even I guess Petrified Blood. So they've been kind of doing things similar to this, and I think it's fine. I think it's not going to be one that you're going to want to do, all your eggs in one ward basket, but I think it sounds kind of cool.
I think it has certain cases where it can shine. I think it's a little competitive for like naturally you think, all right, well this obviously will go very well with like evasion dodge builds, like easy peasy, right? It's just like an extra free steel skin. Except that evasion dodge builds are usually very dependent on evasion base gear, and this has no evasion on it. So like you'd have to be sacrificing hitting certain cap thresholds depending on like how much dodge and evasion you have. And for me, like the one thing I could think of is like, all right, what about agnostic? Because like you can't use energy shield anyways, but you need some sort of base with int on it so that you can roll mana rolls on it. So like maybe the agnostic archmage builds that aren't, like the raiders and the scion raiders and all that other kind of stuff. Like maybe they have a use case for it, but then like most of those are like glancing blows because it's really hard to get full black as a Templar. I mean, you can, it's just annoying. And then at that point in time, you're blocking everything anyways, and you're still taking the damage. Does it proc off of the damage? Is it really going to be useful? So I think it's more of like something that kind of just like chips away a little bit because like I don't. It's like I just feel like every single time you think of an archetype that would use it, like it's almost counterintuitive to not use their natural places. Like so, like a max block glad, like don't you want the armor? Like for molten shell and all that other stuff, and then for your evasion dodge builds where it sounds like honestly it would be pretty good too. Like you want baseline evasion gear.
That's exactly the thing I don't like about the game currently, is that it's forcing me into these play styles when the initial reason I picked up the game in the first place is I could be anything. I could be a witch, and be max block, whatever. Now the skill tree has changed immensely since I first picked up the game. But ever since like the Warlord's Mark attack change, they've just been pushed, and now like witches with ES leech, and you can't find life leech to like, save your fucking life unless you get it on some stupid uniques. Like it just doesn't make any sense. Especially because CI leveling is I'm just like getting mad again. You know what I like? But this is the thing I don't like about the game is that they want to push me into and the whole reason is I loved the pure custom. Yeah, I could have more armor as a gladiator, but what if I got max block as a witch? Because that was more fun to me. What if I got, that is what I strive for. So for me, this push further, especially with like we made skills based on the archetypes of certain characters, and I was like, oh, come on.
All right, I'm gonna let you
Yeah.
segue with that.
What am I saying? Who?
You
Me?
said
I don't know. That's
we made new skills based on the archetypes of the characters.
Oh,
Go.
yeah, I'm not about it because I feel like this is pushing the part of the game that I love the most into a realm of games that I don't like as much. And I know I said I play Final Fantasy and it's very deterministic there, like in what you play, but like this is the game of customization. You can give yourself a trigger, 8 triggers. Well, not anymore because they changed it, but you could do all that stuff. And it just bothers me. Now, that being said, I do like 2 of the new skills. Like, obviously, the potion concoction, because who doesn't like to throw grenades? And I like, the lightning arrow
Storm
on the
rain.
ground. Yeah, I like that. And that's about it. But that's generally yeah, when I saw that they keep pushing me into certain play styles of certain ascendancies, I was like, "Why are you doing this to me?" Like, I felt personally.
Well,
Why
I
did you do
feel
this
I
to
feel
me?
like Ward is supposed to be some ability to have hybrid, right? I feel like they're trying to say, oh, you can do block, and if you can't get max block, now you have Ward on top of that. The question is that ever going to be comparable to actually going full balls
Yeah.
into one of the, block, dodge,
I think we have a
evasion?
lot of tools and mapping situations that aid our ability to survive that, whether it's like percent life gain on kill, we have all of the different onslaught and phasing and all that kind of stuff that help us like sort of mitigate and recover incoming damage. And that falls away in the bossing situation where absolutely none of those are valuable because more and more of the bosses don't have ad phases or anything like that where you can recover, replenish, etc. And so what I
I
look at
mean,
Ward as is I see it as like a bossing layer, something where maybe the attacks aren't as frequent. There's only one boss, and like if you happen to, like get clipped by something, it's that little bit extra. But the problem is that like the opportunity cost to use it and then actually maximize it to where those values are going to be impactful are actually going to require you to like sacrifice different other
Yeah,
defensive layers.
yeah.
you're taking
So
from the
And
pool of your other ones, yeah.
you're still just gonna die to some shit you can't see.
some
So,
degen
does
on
it
the ground, which
matter?
Ward won't knock
Yeah,
on.
you won't be able to see it on the ground. You're gonna get exploded by an invisible ball. It's just gonna be so you're making all these sacrifices to get ward on, but it still doesn't matter because you're just gonna get clapped.
I
Chris
like the
promised that
idea.
they weren't gonna have invisible skill effects.
Oh
Chris
yeah, yeah.
promised.
I mean, oh yeah. Let me tell you what happened when I played last week. Okay, last week in the game where a complete slam from Elder didn't show up at all. So I don't really believe at this point, because apparently you just have graphics that don't show and you die. So yeah, so I like Ward. I love layers of defense because all builds, especially now that they're making it harder, need layers of defense. But like, eh, okay, you're gonna fix the things that insta pop you, the things that you can't avoid, the things that you have 0 reaction time to because it didn't even show up until the last second where it explodes. Because if you fix that, I'll be down. But if you don't, you know.
Mm.
For me personally, I like some of these tendencies towards like focus on boss specific things, like the whole like division of curses from marks, with marks being like the single target slash boss thing. And now we have Ward. I don't know. Like there's a pretty pronounced like bossing part of PoE now where it's not just like a mapping experience. There are bosses that you have to interact with and all these other sorts of things. So I'm happy in some ways that there's like some thought being put towards these systems and how your requirements from mapping differ from your requirements from bossing. But I just feel like they're not quite hitting the mark. Like I'm glad that these sort of thoughts are happening, and I hope that other conversations and whatnot. And, like, and maybe we're all fucking wrong. Maybe Word is awesome, and we have to eat our words in 2 weeks. Um, but like I'm still happy that it's like going in that direction because it's something that's sort of been needed, I think, for a little bit.
I want to up on something you said a little bit ago, BK, and just repeat that boss phases without ads is like we need ads, please. There's no way to like regain your life or health. Unless you like portal out or something. Anyway.
Enduring Cry is one of the things that solved a lot of like the flash starvation in life-based builds. Is Enduring Cry is pretty good for that.
Enduring Cry is
But
a
it
little bit OP,
requires
in my
reaction.
opinion. Like,
Yeah.
it's better than a flask in trials and lab and stuff. Like,
I gotta tell you, I'm dying over this concoction potion and the fact that we get no ads during bosses to like up our damage. That's gonna be really, really enjoyable. It's gonna be really fun.
No. Dang
Yeah.
it. Because I'm very excited about that. I'm sure we'll talk about
no, now.
that, but
Go.
I didn't even think about
You'll
that.
probably have to
Yeah,
combine
no.
like Pathfinder with like Surgeon Flask with the Restore on Critical Watcher's Eye on
Yeah, there's
Precision.
already
Like
gonna be a
you probably
bunch.
gotta like super triple down on your Flask regain.
Can't get crits if you're unarmed unless you wear a certain Rigwald necklace, so you can't do the crit. Flask on crit won't work. It's an unarmed skill.
I'm gonna try my best to make it work just for the sake of I like the idea of throwing things. I would like to have an exploding yeet build. That's
Mhm.
all. That is the basis. My build inspiration is always very simple. Does this amuse me? And the answer is yes.
So, let's formally say we are actually on to the 19 new skills topic now.
No, because I want to talk about lore stuff really fast.
Okay, go.
I want to talk about the
Do it.
guy.
Okay, talk about
All
the guy.
right, this is the
Time to
segment.
get cozy. This is Lore
Yeah,
Hour with Kit and Cat
everybody.
Noodle. Grab your blankets and popcorn and settle down for some lore.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh, I should have you do intros for me. First and foremost, I would like to clear up any confusion. Danig can call himself a lore master, but he's gonna have to prove it. He better prove it if he wants to fight me for that title, because I am the lore master and I don't care what he calls himself. But that's what we will see with this new situation. So they're coming from a completely new place, and yes, I can confirm that this is not a land. Calgar, we haven't heard of Calgar before, so it's not on the Path of Exile map. It's not referenced in anything else. It's basically an insert for you know, when movies where they basically have some person who's not from the world or not from the place go in so they can do all the exposition about, like, ooh, I don't understand anything. Tell me what that is. That's basically what these people are here for. But they're going to look at the bones of their ancestors because apparently their ancestors tried to conquer Rayclass and Rayclass was too much of a bad bitch to be conquered. So there's two very different, but in my opinion, equally likely situations that could happen here. Uh, there's a loud motorcycle right now. There is the potential that we're just going to learn about Calgar and how cool these people are and all the things that are different about their land, and that would be not as good, in my opinion. Or there's a potential that this is basically a vehicle for going back to past important areas of Ray class history and seeing it through the lens of people who were somehow involved with that situation that we didn't know about before. And I think that that could be potentially interesting, especially if our idea is that we're going to places and going to different sites, like important historical sites, or discovering, additional information about certain events that we already know about. In the announcement, they showed Danig talking about Siren's Cove, I believe. I'm not completely sure, but I think it said Siren's Cove there, and then also he's talking about sirens and I should bring earplugs or something. So that could be potentially related to Merveil, right? Or it could just be this is a cool part of Rayclass that we're looking at only through the lens and context of these new people, Calgar. So I really hope that what they're doing with this is more of the self-insert character, I'm new to Hogwarts kind of situation where it's more to give you a fresh lens on stuff that already exists. But I'm calling it now that Danig is a bad guy, and it's totally not just because he's called the Lore Master and that's my name. Um, so everybody else is cool. He can back off.
Okay.
That is all.
I really am interested to see like the relation of it to like when the different timelines that are existing are like when was this in relation to like the Val stuff? When was this in relation to like the actual Empire?
Yeah, and one of the sites that they showed was Val Ruins, or Val Temple Ruins, I think was the name. It was just from one of the screenshots. But yeah, it depends on how they go about it. Is it just like, ooh, our ancestors were in this place and that's it? Or is it like our ancestors had involvement with events that we know about in the history of Rayclast, and that is going to augment or add to or completely change the way that we looked at this past event, which I really hope it's that. But based on last league, I'm like, all right, it's probably just like, it's new stuff. Don't worry about the fact that he said Doriani. Don't even think about it.
I think it's really cool too is like they show in a brief second on the trailer where there's like his menu open and there's like a whole bunch of stuff to click on. So you're not gonna have to like really like play like detective with I mean you still will, knowing you. But like
Yeah.
I feel like there's gonna be a lot more information that's like there versus like trying to chase clues on like flavor text. So that makes me excited to like witness that through you. Like getting a hold of all that dialogue.
Yeah, and I
I'm
think through
excited.
their lens, right, that it'll be a little bit less buried in the flavor text and in interpretation, because they're basically I'm kind of presuming this, but I'm figuring that they're trying to figure out what's going on, which gives me an easier time of trying to figure out what's going on if they're doing the same thing. I think it could be super interesting, and at the very least, I'm really excited for the new environments because they said we're going to places we've never been, and so what does that mean? There's so many places on Rayclass that we've never been. We've never been to Ezimir. We haven't been into like the northern Vasteri Plains where we know some people are from, or even farther to the east of the Vasteri Plains, or like the Asmirian Ranges. Or there's that is the one thing that I hope that there is more depth to the story than just like our ancestors were here.
Yeah,
Uh, but either way, I'm excited to see
I
it.
wonder if this might be some sort of like setup for, maybe not the seed of corruption, but other such things. Like maybe they're here, like, yeah, we're totally just reliving our ancestry and getting cool stuff, but like maybe they're looking for something specific.
It's probably Danig, and he's going to be the big bad.
Yeah, is that what you're calling right now?
Hmm. Hmm.
All right, I'm
Yep.
excited to see.
Hat in the ring.
All right, before we go to 19 new skills, I gotta say that that final Skelly Boy boss who's in the trailer looks awesome.
Yeah.
He's got fingers on his face, man. I don't like him. Like the intro where he like scream shatters the mirror, badass. But like if you look at him, he's got like fingers on his face. It's weird as shit.
Wait, now I need to
I
look at the
love the
folder.
boss designs. On the site, you can see, like, I think there's 3 at least that they show, on the, like, announcement, like, page. I don't really know what to call this, but they look so cool, and I love bosses. Talked about how much I love new bosses before. But also, yeah, I wonder, you always have to kind of wonder, okay, you're coming here to, like, dig up stuff just because you wanna know your history? I doubt.
The one boss
We're
is Big Boy
looters.
McChops. That's his name.
Big
I've
boy
already
McChops.
decided that is his name. is what he will be called.
Okay. 19 new skills.
19 new skills.
All right.
Yeah.
Say the one that you like the most. Is it all, if it's not explosive concoction?
The
There's so
arrow
many.
one. The arrow one. You know the one I was thinking of. I said it earlier.
Okay. All right. Who wants to go first?
I gotta like bring it up on the site so I can actually like mouse over them and talk about it.
Yeah,
There's
me
so
too.
Okay,
few that
you
I'm really
said-
excited about.
You said not explosive concoction, so you threw me for a loop because was my
No,
answer.
I mean, I feel like we should talk about some of the other stuff because I have a feeling that like explosive concoction has been the most popular one. So we'll talk about that one last because we kind of all agree that it looks dope.
I think Battle Mage's Cry looks really interesting, but that's supplemental to using other skills. Like you use an attack and it triggers a spell. So
Oh.
I think it's cool, but it's like, you have to pick the attack and spell. It's not really its own thing.
The knife throwy trap thingy that does the swirlies knives.
Blade trap.
That's
Blade trap.
I bet
yeah.
it's garbage, but it looks good.
The reworked Hammerden. So many
Okay.
of these are like throwbacks to existing D2 and D3 stuff, which is like pretty exciting to me personally, having played both of those before coming here. Like there's like 3 or 4 of them that have like almost direct comparisons or direct like equivalents in the Diablo games.
I want to say that in direct opposition to the blade trap, looks good. Probably plays stupid comment. I think that the lightning arrow thing, the storm arrow or storm rain, some shit, looks stupid. Like I just think lightning in the game looks really dumb in most of the versions that I've seen. All the lightning
I
effects.
love lightning.
When I
skills.
saw it, I just wanted to put it in a mine. I'm like, I'm gonna put this in mine. So I didn't even think about like,
Yeah.
oh, cool bow skill. I'm like, mines. But I think it's Spectral Helix is the one that is the one that is hammered in 2.0. That one seems pretty neat. I'm excited for that possibility because that's what Vol Spectral Shield or Spectral Throw was supposed to be, but you couldn't really ever sustain it. It wasn't very good, and the base mana cost on Spectral Throw is like ridiculous.
Where is it on the site? Because they've got all the classes
It's the
except
first
Scion.
one, so it's like the Scion is the first one. It's got like the lady and like that crazy gold armor, which I
Oh.
guess that's gonna come later in the league as something that's released because I've never seen that shit before.
The image for the
Yeah.
gem wasn't loading for me, so I didn't know it was there.
Yeah, it takes a second. It's something weird with the site and the way it's layered in
You
here.
have to
I missed
mouse
that
over
earlier.
it for it to appear, which is
And melee
probably
totems
not
is pretty
intentional.
cool. So we've had like spell and range attack totems for a long time. Oh, sorry, ballistas now. They're not rats anymore. So like slam totem seems pretty interesting if you like enjoy that playstyle. The one that I'm interested in is of course Earth Shatter. So if you can have 4 totems that all Earth Shatter, can you then Warcry and explode all of them? And then what is that going to do? That might be some good shotgunny kind of damage.
I just really love the idea of like you and your 4 totems like leaping like all over the map like frogs or bunnies or something. It just
Yeah.
seems really comical to me.
It
Shield
is.
Crash also has some potentially pretty crazy numbers. We were threading a couple of shields through Earth. Like if we just go base, if we ignore the 7 to 10 base offhand damage, which will probably scale with gym levels, and just go to the 5 to 7 added physical per 15 armor, we were getting values of like 1,000 to 1,400 with like a fairly well crafted shield. Like this would be like something that would be in game for people that were going for it specifically, which is the same as Wave of Conviction at level 20. So that's like the spell amount of physical, like flat physical, just on that alone, which then gets scaled. So, and we know that it can actually shotgun. So, like, Shield Crash honestly seems kind of interesting too.
Rage Vortex looks like a better Blade Storm, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
I'm
shall see
curious
if
how
that's
big it
actually
gets.
good or
Like
not.
in Chris's Q&A, he said that like we purposely showed a smaller version because if we made it like massive, then we thought people would think that they could make it even bigger. That was my
Is
interpretation
that
of what
why
he
they
said.
showed Bone Shatter, but they just had it hit one white enemy and it took 2 hits? And I was like, what?
Hmm.
Is it am I supposed to know what this skill does? Because it looks like a doink. It looks like I'm just doinking things right now, and I'm sure it's better, but that was my big thing is I know they're trying to not show them overpowered because of, like, the crackling lance situation, but I was like, "What?"
Oh,
I like the look of Mana Bond, but I hate the way Mana Bond is used, so I'll probably never
I'm
use
not gonna
it.
use that.
Yeah. For me, it seems
That's
like
that's
some sort of,
basically it.
like, clear for, like, ball lightning build or something like that. You, like, swap that in and then use that to clear, and then you go back to, like, ball lightning for single target or something like that.
They have to know. They have to know by now that some of us cannot hold on to skill gems in their bags because they accidentally sell them. Now, someone being myself. Okay, so they gotta know I don't want a gem swap because I can't remember. I've sold like 5x items accidentally because they were in my bags, and I'm like, just throw it
Oh,
all in the thingy. So yeah, it's like a that mana bond. You look cool, but I hate how you function. Is
For
that
me,
rude?
it's just, like, so counterintuitive because, like, everything that's good about an Archmage build is how beefy you are with also having damage, and it's like, "Well, just stay at low mana." It's like, "Okay, yeah, I'll stay at low mana with my 3K fucking life. That's gonna work out."
especially
Mhm.
for the low mana functionality to be the one you wanna use for concentrating damage for doing on bosses. They're like, "Yeah, the low mana makes you do more damage," and I'm like, "No, do
No.
the
No.
opposite."
I need the high mana, obviously. What?
Yeah,
What do you
that one
want
is
from
just a
me?
little puzzling. I'm not a big fan of it.
It looks cool.
Anyone, gonna be playing with Mommy Reaper?
Yes,
App. Nope.
absolutely.
I actually love it. And it's probably the first time that I've ever really been like, okay, so I've got to learn how to do minions now. Just
I'm just
Looks
excited for a
super
new
cool.
minion type. I mean, like, you could be like, "Oh, we got carrying golem." Like, carrying golem, whatever. Like, this is actually a new minion.
I
Carrion
mean, don't
Golem
you
is
get
just
new
Stone Golem
minions?
with a new cone attack. That's basically it. Like it function, play style is the same as any other Golem build, but
But,
this is
like,
entirely different.
don't you guys
Yeah.
get new minions every time they give you guys new specters? You guys minion players, that is. I
I'm
don't
not
play
much of a
minions,
Spectre person. This is actually the first leashed minion that I'm very excited about. I play duration
Mhm.
based minions mostly because I hate like Spectre and AG management.
Yeah.
It just drives me bonkers. So this is the first time that I'm seeing like a permanent minion and going, yes, this is I want to play this. Because normally I'm like an
Kinda wanna
SRS
try
or
it.
Skellies or Phantasm kind of lady, not a perma minion sort of lady.
The animation. I just wanna play with the Reaper minion because the animation is really, really cool, and it's a cool idea. And I never use animated Guardian anyway, so she can eat my golems, it's cool, baby.
The one that
the
was
poor
I'm
golems.
the focused ballista one, I'm actually really excited
Mm.
about too because I love explosive arrow. And this is
Mm.
like made for explosive arrow, considering like it doesn't attack unless you are, and then it targets what
But
you're targeting. So it's perfect for, especially with that attack speed multiplier, just like feeding insane amounts of charges into things and exploding it for I always go bleed.
is it
So make big
n
bleeds.
okay, fleet. I was gonna
Mm.
say, is it explosive arrow elementalist? Because it probably gonna gut my elementalist to the ground.
I played an EA Bleed Mines in Harvest because you could play anything in Harvest, so that's what I
Mhm.
did. I used, Mines to bypass the attack speed requirement required of, Explosive Ire or Explosive Arrow for high fuse count. So we were able to still get, like, really, really big, thick bleeds because, like, the mines were throwing it, but even then, the mines weren't 100% accurate because sometimes they would just, like, target something else, and you'd be like, "Shit." And it would just, like, explode and nothing would happen, but with this one, you're actually feeding the fuses directly to what you're targeting, which is really, really nice. Like, I'm definitely doing EA Bleed this league. Like, what if I could do it with, like, those and then the Mirage Archers as Deadeye? Like, all of the arrows, all of the booms.
Yeah, and Eye of Winter looks good. Eye of Winter looks
Yes!
interesting. I feel like it is the exact skill that the Templars use against us, and it's kinda bullshit, so I think it'll be good.
Yeah,
Probably only
it's the
be
same
like
as the little, like, holy one that they have, the little spinny disc one.
I bet it will still be Z DPS, but I'll try it.
I mean,
All the cool skills I feel will be Zed DPS, and all the shit ones will be the best one. And I'll, because it always works like that.
Mm.
Oh, Cracklance, you look so cool. Oh, you're terrible. Oh, it turns out you're so bad. You know, I'm still like PTSD of Cracklance leveling. It was so fortunate.
the
Yeah.
one that I'm kind of excited about too is Voltaxic Burst because it plays
Mm.
very, very similar to Explosive Blast from Diablo 3.
Yeah.
There's a specific unique set that centered around it called Wand of Woe, which was like super fast, like cooldown recovery. So you would just basically like perpetually explode while running through the map. So I'm
Ooh.
excited to play with it and see if we can recreate Wand of Woe in this one, even if it just ends up being like some sort of mapper or whatever. Like I'm just excited to play with the skill.
What do you guys think of ambush as a movement skill?
Meh.
It was really funny that they had to demonstrate it on like the Itsumi fight because it's like, oh, look at me, I'm dashing backwards, and now I'm teleporting forward, and I'm dashing backwards again. I'm like assuming that people actually have the brain cells to think and use those two abilities like that. I don't. There's no way I can control my character. Like anytime I dash backwards, it's on accident. It's because I've left my finger on the shift button when I shouldn't have. But the actual like stats of it, as far as like exerting a strike and then that strike having crit and crit multi to it, makes me think of like haven't played the melee poison builds, but I feel like there'd be a lot of synergy there, like Viper Strike getting like that extra, especially if you go perfect agony, like that 100 crit multi is 50 dot multi. That's not insignificant.
Oh, okay. I do have one other comment. The head support.
I'm so disappointed in it. Like, strike skills in general need a little bit of love. They really do because slams are just so dominant now. And for that to be what strike skills get, because like ambush
Terrible.
is really niche, right?
Mhm.
So like this is like the air quotes here generic strike buff, and it's not. Some people are excited about it, but I guess it depends on how much the more multiplier at low life is.
I
But
like the
I'm
Q range, and I like it's a 30% more multiplier against low life, but I do like the +2 strike range. But I think I guess it's kind of like yikes, but I suppose.
Okay, let's talk about explosive concoction.
Yeah, it's a projectile that ignites, and you know what that means? It's flame wall time, baby!
true.
Yes, we're gonna be throwing some flasks through the fire. We're gonna light things on fire. I'm gonna do it Pathfinder. There's also, I mean, there's some interesting things on Pathfinder as well with being able to buff ignite in some way. Of course, that side of the tree's a little spicy for it, but I'm gonna be doing it.
I feel like that's one of the things that you're gonna have to solve recovery and mitigation on, like through gear or through passive allocations, because your flasks are just like removed.
I like that it's so different though.
Oh, I
I think
absolutely
it's
do
gonna be
too.
super challenging to work with, but I like that it feels so different in flavor than so many things that we've gotten for a long
Mhm.
time. It really does feel like a completely new thing that's happening. It's not a new strike skill, and technically I guess it's a projectile, but it feels like it's expanding the possibilities of things like who knows, maybe now I could start throwing weapons at people or something, kind of leading into the spear situation they showed for PoE2, like expanding the possibilities of your actions. Um, Being unarmed is going to be tough, especially doing fire damage over time, but I don't care. I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
Well,
It looks interesting to me. I don't know how much I like the flask to get more damage element to it because I know that every time I make a character that's more reliant on flasks, I hate how they boss. So I don't That's the one concern I have, but generally I like the idea of lobbing bombs at people, so I'm into it.
Okay. I feel like the overall upshot, before we move on to the balance discussion, I wanted to ask you guys what you think of the new approach to designing skills for a league, because like Chris mentioned and like we all know, previously their approach to skills and skill additions has been like to focus on a particular type of playstyle or element in the game and then make a number of things for it. And in this case, they said, no, we're going to make something for each archetype. Um, I initially thought that was a good idea because it lent a lot more variety to how people plan and what potential metas could emerge, um, and also the idea that like those skills are married to their ascendancy archetype seems a little bit erroneous in many cases. Um, but I know Vel didn't already, she's already mentioned that she didn't like it that much. I was curious, Noodle and BK, what you guys think on the change in how they go about adding new skills to the game.
Well, I will say that my usual method of planning a build kind of goes in the opposite direction. Like I'll pick a skill first and then figure out what ascendancies that I could do with that would work,
Mhm.
or even ones that would make it a bit more interesting or spicy or just weird. And so I guess while I don't necessarily think it's good or bad, because there's still the potential that they're going to work with other ascendancies than what they were kind of created around. It is kind of interesting because it does feel like just the opposite of how I would normally consider building a character. And so there is some part of me that says, is this going to be indicative of a bit more of guard railing and guiding certain builds and certain archetypes that are, hard to veer away from because this is going to be the most efficient. This is what it's intended to do, when that does personally to me feel like the opposite of what is attractive about Path of Exile, where you have this pile of different skills and there's not necessarily a clear cut, oh, this skill goes with this class and this ascendancy and this whatever. Um, I don't think it's bad if it's just this time and it's not like every new skill in the future is going to be planned around a specific build in a certain ascendancy, but it did sort of tickle me, kind of give me like spidey senses of like, that's kind of the opposite of how I usually think of these things in terms of planning. So,
BK, what about you?
I don't think it's a major hindrance at all. Like, I think that in the design and the idea behind the gems themselves, they took a lot of inspiration from like, all right, what if we could like boil down an ascendancy into something cool that like represents it, what would it be? And I feel like these are the results of a lot of those discussions. Like if you could thematically group skill gems. But aside from the concoction one, I don't think any of them are necessarily ascendancy locked. Like the concoction one, because of the flasking requirements, I think is a little bit hard locked to Pathfinder. But I'm not really seeing any of the other ones that would sort of follow suit. I feel like a lot of them have a lot of different ways that they could go. So I don't agree that it is necessarily something where they're trying to push it first. I think like correlating them is like important maybe for new players that don't have the experience with builds that we do. Like so they're just getting 19 new skill gems thrown in their face, and this sort of like eases them into like, hey, we designed it around this specific ascendancy, or we designed it because we were inspired by this ascendancy. So like these go well together. I don't think like taking like little hints and nudges at that is necessarily a bad thing, but to say that they're, this is a bad way because it's making you choose your ascendancy before your skill. I still look at almost all of these that I've seen and like thought of something entirely different. Like I saw the lightning arrow one, which was presented for Raider. I immediately thought Saboteur. You know, like there's like the zappy whatever Templar totem guys, and I'm thinking, oh well, that would be way cooler with offerings to have all that extra attack speed and or cast speed for them. I'm thinking going necro instead. And so like I don't know. I'm not completely convinced that necessarily that these are like very concrete archetypes, but more general suggestions.
Ellie, got any response?
You guys know very much how I feel on this matter. So, I'm just I don't like being pushed and or like I know that I know what they're doing. I don't like it.
Okay.
Like that's basically it's not what I would do, but I don't run the company, so it's not for me to, I'll just try the new skills and see how they are and the ones that I actually want to play and go from there.
All right. On the notes of I know what they're doing and I don't like it, let's talk about some balance changes. There are a number of items, I guess, if you will, of balance change. I feel, though, before we get into any specifics, that there was a lot of preamble about balance change without actually, any concrete understanding of what forms they will take. Aside from, for example, the flask rework and the support gem rework and triggered skills and, I don't know, some nerfs in general. So maybe we should just talk about the preamble first and then get into the specific ones that we know of. And probably before we start any of that, just say, like, without the development manifesto, we're all speculating here, right? The preamble was about power creep, and there was a really pretty looking graph with no references provided. Basically implying that since Path of Exile started, everybody's getting OP, and everything we do in the game is just making you stronger and faster, and we at GGG don't like that. We want to make you slower. That's how we make the game feel hard. The example I think that was talked about was just like some monsters in Act 1 and how they're balanced and such. What was your impressions of, like, I guess Chris talking about power creep, the balance changes, the overall approach from GGG, I guess, before we go into like the exact ways that we know of. I think Vel, I'd love to hear from you first because you've been playing the longest and you have direct experience of whether that
The
graph is
balance
accurate or not.
changes? Well, I can say from my own experience that we hated okay. Perfect example. When they did a massive change around Warlord's Mark, I mentioned it earlier. Where they made it only attacks gain the endurance charges, and it rocked our whole world. And I specifically remember turning to my partner and saying, "This is bullshit and unplayable, and the game is ruined." I'm still playing the game. So, but like the game desperately needs this. I remember like when they said when they said the game used to be difficult leveling up, and then they showed the cavern with the cave with the slave girl where you get the thing for Fairgraves. I don't remember what the thing's called. His lamp.
It's the all
Well,
flame.
the all flame. Thank you. I know I'm playing the game for 8 years. It's literally been called the same thing every time. I just can't remember its name. But but actually almost 9 now. Holy shit. But I remember that back in the day, those flicker guys were absolutely terrifying. Like the flicker guys feel how the gauntlet flicker guys feel. Actually, they don't even feel that bad in the gauntlet comparatively. Like they feel as bad as the cannibals with additional proj. Like that's how dangerous they were in the beginning of the league. Like Brutus It felt very Gauntlet-esque, like, it slowed you down, you had to really think about what you were doing, you had to make sure you got good upgrades. So, I'm not necessarily mad about the slowdown part of things and the nerfs and whatever, however, you can slow me down playing the game, but will you slow down how fast I die? Because you don't do that, then it feels like you're just punishing me doubly. Like, "Yeah, I'll make you slow down, and you're gonna get volatile blooded." So, that's my biggest concern about their slowdown. I'm all for stopping the speedy meta. I don't sometimes I take 10 minutes, especially with Ultimatum. There have been times in Ultimatum where I took 20 minutes in a map because I stopped mid-ultimatum, we were just watching a video on YouTube. Like
Because of the pause.
yeah, yeah,
Fucking
exactly.
love the
So, like,
pause.
20 I come back, and I'm like, "Where am I? Oh my god, I'm in Ultimatum?" Like, I'm just shocked. You know? So, like, I don't mind taking longer times in a map, it's just more about how it's going to play out. Balance changes are desperately needed. Meta shakeup is desperately needed. Like, I'm so sick of fucking slam builds and all the same shit, you know?
Mm.
So, but at what cost in the end of the day? Is it gonna cost our fun? Because usually, fun equals nerfs. It's usually the case. So we'll see. I think it's overall, balance changes are generally good. There have been definitely a couple that people were so mad about they quit the game, but no.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next? DK?
Sure. I'm interested and apprehensive about the upcoming balance changes, specifically like the numeric ones as far as like skill damage and monster damage on this other sort of stuff, to sort of touch on what Veli was saying. As someone who's played like MMOs for like most of my like air quotes here like gaming career, like I've been playing mostly MMOs. And so the way that we see that solved all the time over there is like crunch, number crunch, where they take all of your power and all of your stats and like say you have like a million life and they crunch it down to, oh no, now you're back down to 10,000, and everything is scaled respectively to those values. And then there's all these sort of like tuning issues that happen, especially when you take those number crunched characters through old content, which had different modifiers, and like old dungeons can sometimes kick your ass, or they're a complete joke. Who knows? It's like no one. It's kind of a mess in general. So I'm happy that they're not approaching this with the like number crunch sort of solution to it, because like those, even though like WoW is one of those things where you know you're going to completely like obliterate a tier, the next tier that's out every single time. So like number crunch becomes acceptable because in, 6 to 9 months when the new patch is out, none of the gear matters anyways, or when the new expansion comes out, none of the gear matters anyways. But I feel like Path of Exile is more linear than that because like you're playing sort of the same content more often, where in WoW it changes. So don't feel like that's a viable solution. So this sort of idea of bringing the floor up to match the ceiling slowly over time while also slightly lowering the ceiling is a good way to approach this problem in PoE specifically, just due to like the nature of the game versus something that is like much more instanced off that like WoW is. Am I nervous about it? Sure. But at the end of the day, like I look at all of my POBs for the characters that I like to play the most, and like I can lose 20% off the top of it and not really, it doesn't affect my gameplay that much. I could lose up to 40% off the top of some of the skills. Like going from like a 4.6 million caustic arrow back down to like a 3 million caustic arrow isn't really going to change my Cyrus fight aside from adding 45 seconds to it.
I think
Um,
my PP cock is completely decimated with this new change. Poet's pen cock, people.
I
Okay?
was like,
PP cock is poet's is the poet's pen cock. It's just really a lot of words to say. Poet's pen cross.
Yeah. I was gonna be like, for
So
those of
yeah,
you
yeah.
playing who are just listening, we're just talking about cast on crit.
Yeah, yeah, cast on crit, poet's pen. I think it already had it was on the edge with its mana leech. Now that they're doing the change, I think that build is just donezo.
I never played a lot of the trigger stuff, so I guess I wasn't, that didn't really like I
Yeah.
don't know, sink into my brain very much.
The triggers hurt me quite significantly, but there's at least one build that I'm pretty sure is dead, and one maybe I can survive, and then one I'm like, "Yikes, can I survive? I should be able to survive." You know?
Is there a way to
It's
mitigate
all about
the
testing.
mana issue?
Sorry? I
What?
didn't hear you.
The triggers? Like, mitigating the trigger issue?
Yeah.
It's just about how much mana regen do you have? Can you afford to pop off that cast with your other cast going concurrently? If you can, then you're probably fine. In my Poet's Pen case, the kinetic bolt was already using quite a bit of mana to pop off everything else, so it's probably gonna be donezo, but in my, Hammercock builds, which is Mjolnir, I think I'll be okay, and any other trigger places, they should be. No, the Mjolnir cock isn't dead. Sorry, I'm responding to somebody in chat. It's not dead. I can survive. It will be fine. It will be fine. I will test it when we get the notes.
I think you'll figure it out, even if it changes.
It's some of them are very difficult, to where it highly depends on what else they change. Are they gonna nerf elementalists into the ground? Are they gonna nerf golems into the ground? Are they gonna nerf, like, where are we going with the nerfs here?
Mm.
And until I find that out, my brain is just feeling anxiety all weekend, like, "Oh god. Oh, Jesus." Like, Pobe, numbers, will they work?
Pet the cat.
So much work to do. I know, basically, right?
Yeah, pet the cat. Just
Basically.
pet the
Yeah.
cat until we find out. Don't squeeze it.
That's pretty much it. That's all I have. That's all I have. I'm feeling a level of anxiety over numbers I have no control of.
All right.
Well,
Yeah, Noodle.
oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think BK's point to kind of restate that because it's how I feel. It's like you can't really just chop things off the top and chop things off the bottom. You can't just squish everything down equally. Power creep is so different uh amongst different, like, there's so many different levels of power within Path of Exile that there's no really easy way, and so, like, I trust them to do what needs to be done. I just have no, again, hot take in the fact that I don't have feelings right now.
Mm.
I don't have any expectations for the buffs or nerfs. I don't have any particular worries. I've already sort of made peace with the fact that probably Flame will be hit just because of all the Burning Arrow people who made it meta, and that's, it's a bummer, but it's okay. But I think it's kind of, I guess my only thing is I'm just sitting here, I'm like, okay, yeah, take away some of our power, but can you please just give us some better defenses too? When
Mhm.
are we going to get the defensive buff? That's the only thing I can think of seeing this is like,
What do
okay,
you
make
mean?
us less powerful, but
You got ward.
okay, you're making me eat my words on that one.
It's
Yeah,
not
Yeah.
a
yeah,
buff
word is gonna
though.
be a
A
thing.
new kind of defense is not a buff to defenses. It's just another type of
Yeah.
defense.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like, Vel and BK, you pretty well convinced me that if anything, it's just going to be like, here, let's make it so if you try to use ward, you're going to ruin your other potential options by like making them both not viable. Because especially, I hadn't even considered the fact that like, yeah, your gear source is now ward as well. So it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I like feeling powerful and I totally understand that we're overpowered, but at the same time, like everything there is really scary. And if you haven't noticed, the biggest way to uh like not die in the game is to just kill everything first.
Yeah.
People aren't necessarily always going into defenses. That's why softcore has become so much more popular. In part that's because of some of the technical issues and where people get frustrated of dying to things that they can't control, but the other part is like, hey, I'm probably going to die, and why not just go full glass cannon if that's going to be the case? And so the only thing that I'm really hoping to see is some amount of defensive buff that's not ward. I don't think that that fits. I don't think that that fixes it, and I think that having more defensive options, there's still going to be people who just go full glass cannon. Hell, I'm one of them.
Mm.
But I still think that there should be more options for defensive stuff, and I think that's kind of to me feels like a pretty obvious piece that they're missing, and maybe I just don't understand it well enough, but, like, I don't know.
I really like that point actually, because the current sort of attitude to like designing a character, if you can't like get your gear perfect, and face it, like without harvest is quite hard to do, or even with harvest as is, the like the defensive viability of your build is like mitigated by the fact that you can just do heaps of damage, and if you're nerfed and you don't have like enough ways to get access to corresponding levels of defense, then it's going to make the game, what is it, just you need to manually dodge everything, okay, but then you're designing elements of the game that aren't dodgeable, like ground stuff and degens that you can't
Yeah.
see, and random shit that happens really really quickly, that kind of stuff like that.
Let's
In
discuss
fact,
the lightning mirages that look the same as you on top of you.
on like kind of segueing into Act 1 being slower and those characters being updated, like a hail rate being able to target where you're running. I mean, in my experience, and I know that I'm a terrible player at this game, but like being able to run out of the way of the thing is like the way that you deal with Hellrake, because if you get hit by it, like you're kind of frozen there for a bit. So if he can target where you're running to
Yeah, you
instead
just
of
stay behind
you,
him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly by making the monsters more intuitive, like, because it's been that way for a while, where we've had like most of the stuff in maps is like 95% of it you can ignore, except for the fringe cases, with like certain rares having attributes that then stack with different map mods, and their inherent ability is something that is high physical damage to begin with, and then that like one shots you through like 25k EHP mitigate whatever. And like, so, but the rest of it is just like completely inconsequential. So the idea that, like even like your traditional mobs will have some sort of like behavior, whether they move faster, can close the distance on you a little bit quicker, maybe they lead projectiles on you, maybe they lead, like how Hellrake is now. I mean, that's again like part of the whole slowing the game down and to like force you to interact with these sort of mechanics. I think like for the most part are people that know how to put characters together that are clear-oriented, that just blow through everything anyways. Are they going to notice it? Probably not. Like, I think this is going to be something that's like, oh, hey, neat, and then we just all move on with our lives. I'm not really
look, I don't think
intimidated by this.
I'm not on this side of like I don't think it's going to be a good thing, because I think I'm the only one here who was able to play the PoE2 beta, and I will tell you that I died to like at least 20 times to a worm. What are they called? The like devourer. I died to that devourer. Like I did not actually finish Act 1. That's
They're really dangerous though. Devourers used to be like mega
that
giga
devourer in
dangerous.
particular was
Yeah.
like, it was clever. It knew what it was doing. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
self-aware.
Oh, so it actually, yeah, it was self-aware.
It had a
It
plan.
had better.
It knew what I was doing and it got me. In fact, I actually think that the change they said they were going to do to Hellrake is what it knew how to do, and I'm actually scared. But that did not make it less enjoyable, because I did keep going back and I did die those 20 times and it was fun. Like, making it hard is fun. What I'm curious about is if you make, like, if we're gonna see this change, because we knew that they wanted to make the game slower ever since PoE2 was announced, and they showed that with the demo. Like, I think we thought like, oh, Act 1 through 10 is gonna get that change all at once. The fact that we're getting Act 1 first and it's gonna happen gradually is like, I think a cleverer way of doing it, because it's gonna feel less sudden. I don't know. I think that's smarter, but like my biggest concern is that if you want to slow down this part of the game, this part is all about going fast and doing things really, really quickly with repetition. Are we going to get more credit for doing things slower because it's harder at this part? And by this part, I mean the end game, the mapping, the bossing in maps. Like, is the corresponding slowness, is it going to eventually apply there?
It should. I don't see why it wouldn't. That's something I remember when speed became the name of the game, and they kept saying, "You guys are going too fast. You guys are going real fast." Uh, so they have to fix the end game. They can't just do 10 acts and leave the end game the same because that would be dumb. That would just be purely dumb. Because by end game, we have access to all the best weapons and so on and so forth, right? So that would be just incredibly naive or something. They just left it like that. But at the same time, it's like, again, like earlier, will I die slower then? Because if I won't, then what you're doing is going to be really, really annoying. My main thing though is like, I think that this change to Act 1 is gonna be fine. I think the current changes are gonna be like, what they're gonna do is fine, but, the gauntlet, dude, I'm already slow in Act 1. I already feel like it takes me 30 minutes to get out of Act 1, and that's too long, man, that's too long, and now it's gonna take me like a 40 minutes. So long. Maybe 50? Maybe I just die at Hillock again? Oh, you know? I'm worried. I'm concerned. I have fear for my next gauntleting run because that's always like my challenge. Will I get my PB? Will I be one level higher than the last time I did this? The answer is no.
I think the
So
thing
far.
that's, like, down in the pipeline that I think is on the way, but not really sure is, like, a timetable when is calculation changes. I think that's gonna be, like, the big driving factor with all these other changes. Like, we have these step downs that are gonna be occurring over time, as we get closer and closer to PoE2 to sort of, like, I guess, bring the game down to, like, what they see as ideal, but the fact still remains that the damage calculations are so bloated in so many regards. We learned that back in Blight League when they're like, "Hey, let's stress test our engine. Let's give poison and minions the meta seats, and then we're gonna spawn a shitload of monsters in a map and watch our engine break." And they learn that, like, okay, all these calculations are really fucking bad. So they need to, like, go through and simplify certain things, and there was a similar sort of change that happened in WoW, where they changed the way tanks inherently took damage, where, like, the big spikes of damage were a little bit more nuanced, and then the sort of average damage that you would take was more repetitive and something that had, like, actual mitigations built around and for. And so I'm really hoping that as we have these step downs, like that starts to happen too. Like we have these sort of like simplifications that happen so that these like errant spikes of damage and whatnot happen and get, you know, like it's definitely something because like as you slow down, it's the same concern everyone has. Like, okay, so I am this slow now. The monsters are faster. They have targeting behavior. So if they still hit me for 5,000 like damage because of map mods, like what the fuck am I supposed to do about it?
Mm.
So I'm hoping that like these are just steps in a progression of changes that are going to happen over time and like maybe I don't because they can't just do it all at once because then like they said like there's going to be a huge reaction to it, but hopefully I'm hoping that one comes sooner rather than later.
If anything, I was actually just saying they should have done the end game and then worked back on the act because like the acts are already to most players, ugh. Right? Like, to most players, there's nobody that sits there in the acts and like, "I like Act 7. I'm gonna stay here." Right? Like, nobody wants to stay here. We all just wanna get to endgame. So, if
Well, they're
anything, they should've just fixed that and then worked on acts afterwards because, like, acts are even unfortunately, a deterrent for new players because, I mean, it's big scary. There's a lot that you don't understand. It's like Monster Hunter where the game tells you everything and nothing. It has a huge, great tooltip of information, but at the same time, you're
What,
so overloaded
what
with
does it mean?
information, you're like, you're just done with it. You're just done.
I do think it's worth pointing out that Chris said like the reason they revisited Act One, which is they made that like over 10 years ago, and it hasn't
Yeah, but,
really
like
seen that kind of adjustment
my
since.
impression was that as they changed each act, the monster types would carry forward into the in-game equivalents. So,
yeah,
like, the new
maybe.
behaviors will show up in the maps as well.
They did
They
say that,
also
yeah.
said they also said in the Maven expansion that they were working on fixing Beyond because it's still bandits from Act 2, and look, they're the same, you know? There's so many,
Uh,
like, other things. There's just so many other things that to me, like, doing the balance change in Act 1 and doing the Battle Royale were in my case, if somebody who doesn't work there or on video games, period, in my opinion, it would make more sense to make the end game feel a hell of a lot less tedious because that atlas is just killing me, dude.
I
Killing
want
my
to
spirit.
like back you on that statement because I think was it that this set of challenges that really hammered home how much like speed and repetition is required to do any like to finish anything. I think
I didn't even bother looking at the challenges
no, I
because
didn't
I
either.
looked at them once and was like, no.
No, like there was something like a thousand of something in there, and I was like, yeah, no, I don't think that's gonna happen. Not for me. I
Yeah.
don't know how anyone who got 40,
It highly depends.
you're the real
Is it
MVP,
range
man.
based?
Some of them were,
Yeah.
because some of them were locked behind Trial Master. Yeah.
No, wait. Oh, you mean that? Yeah, yeah, you're right. You were talking about trial. I thought you meant like these challenges. I thought we already got to see them,
Oh,
and I was like,
no, we
"What?
haven't
Not
seen them yet.
again!
No, no, no.
Not again!" I was actually about to lose my
You're like,
mind.
Belle's like, wait, what?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
because
no. The last challenge set was, I didn't
I
even,
always,
It's TRNG and then too grindy. Like I get it that
yeah,
it's
yeah,
supposed
it
to be
was
grindy,
both.
but that was
I think there was a topic like I haven't really spent that much time on forums lately, but I did see somebody comparing challenges to like, a year or two beforehand and how like the sheer quantity of something required has just increased.
yeah.
Like it used to just be do 100 maps or something. I think I remember
Killing
seeing that.
Shaper was like an entire one, not like kill Shaper with like 50 balls on the screen and then kill Uber Elder with like whatever else. Like and it's like a multi-part, multi-boss challenge before it was like just kill Shaper. Like that was one of them. That's it. Just do the thing.
uh,
I'm still mad that they had one challenge when I actually decided to get 36 because it was for the hideout. They had a challenge that was like, kill this guy while he's bleeding. And I'm like, so you're basically saying I have to either have a friend or make a build that inflicts bleed. Like, there's. What? I can't even do this with my own build. I have to have a whole entire build or like skill set or just use a different skill, but then my build was entirely elemental, so I'm not making anybody bleed. Luckily, I do have some friends,
you have
but
friends?
yeah, I have at least like a couple.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
let's go
Yes.
flask rework.
Yay.
Yay?
Yay.
It's certainly going to make things more challenging because it's a nerf to flasks overall with a quality of life thing attached to it. So the fact that you can't like preemptively prevent certain things happening to you and things either have to be triggered or reactive changes a lot of things. Like you can't just have like passive bleed immunity anymore unless you go for it. You can't have passive freeze immunity unless you just go for it. Like you have to actually like interact with things that way or set up the ones to trigger. And it's definitely interesting, and I'm happy for the people, especially those who have like existing carpal tunnel issues and otherwise, that there's like the ability to basically have flask macro without have flask macro with the adjacent flask usage thing. Um, but I think this is gonna be sort of like a speed bump in reacting to different. For me, it's like how bad does ailment immunity get hit on the other side of that is what determines how I feel about
Mm.
this.
Yeah,
But I
I
think,
guess
like, as a concept, it's really neat, and I'm glad that there's at least some flasks something here. Like, this is needed to have been addressed in a long time.
it's muscle memory for me at this point, so there's basically no way that I'm suddenly going to be reactively instead of proactively flasking.
Mm.
However, having the new currency to roll flasks that say when X condition is met, you like do this. That's all I need. I was like, cool, great, excellent.
Yeah.
I like this
excited.
currency, but I'm super worried that it's going to be like an Exalt rare type thing.
No, they said
No,
it was gonna be like baubles.
baubles.
Really?
You got some
Mhm.
boobles? You got some glass boobles?
I
Now you
like
can
the.
craft.
Okay, I know this has absolutely nothing, almost nothing to do with it, but the art for the way that it's like it looks like like an old school perfume bottle tube, and you can go like with it.
I thought they were cute, the little extra ones. There's like a stand and then the
Yeah.
other one's like an IV infusion thing. I think
Yeah.
it's cute.
Um, Vel.
Uh, Overall, I think it's a band-aid for a system that they admitted and we know is broken, and I don't nice, I guess. It's not really like, but what did I expect them to do? Get rid of Flask, Keck W? Like, no. You know? Like, that's not at all what I expected either, but it just doesn't feel like it just feels, yeah, like a Band-Aid, and it's not really solving our issues
Does the
necessarily.
flask rework matter if I'm just gonna be throwing my flasks with my explosive yeet?
Yeah.
Who
I think
knows?
it actually really could matter if you're throwing it with the but then again, if you're a Pathfinder, you're probably gonna be fine because 'cause you'll just get another flash charge in a second. So it should be okay. Yeah, well, general except one of them doesn't do charges when you used it, so you can't use that bauble to get because I assume you'll be negated from your ascend charges, so
Uh-huh.
that's a thing. Yeah, so you probably just won't use that one, but overall, yeah, it just feels like a Band-Aid on a system that we know is flawed, and I will have to see how it plays out when I play it because right now I'm just highly skeptical of a lot of decisions,
Okay.
I'm, like, very skeptical.
So I do kind of agree with you. Like on the one hand, I was like, okay, cool, Flask rework, because when you see the banner that says Flask rework, you get excited. But then when you see what the actual rework is, it doesn't really yet. Like to me, I'm like, okay, it's a little better, but it doesn't solve what other people like what the problem truly is. And I was
Mhm.
kind of curious because I don't have a lot of experience with other games, what other approaches there are out there to the Flask system. I believe that most other games don't really have 5, right?
Well, I could tell you Last Epoch lets you carry, like, 4 of the same life flasks, but I didn't make it insanely far into the game because I was malding about ARPGs at the time. So, I can't say maybe they get 5 flasks later, but I don't think so.
I think a lot of games that expect you to use items reactively also have the ability to pause.
Or
So
actually, you know what I loved about now I'm sorry, this is a Path of Exile podcast, and here I am. The one thing I loved about Last Epoch is that all of the attacks were very clear in what they were doing. "Oh, this is gonna damage me. I should move over here." You don't have that in Path because the visual clutter is just a mess. It's insanely visually cluttery.
well, and
So
on that note, having us have to be reactive when you can't even tell what's going on because you have, like, 12 minions and
Mhm.
crazy MTX
Yeah,
and,
I mean, if
technical problems, you're like, "I don't know what I need to do."
If you even
yeah.
look at the leak footage itself, like, when they're actually fighting the different monsters for it, like, yes, it's like they just never quite get the timing right for things to feel like you have those windows of opportunity to react to it. Because like, you
Yeah.
wait 3 seconds on the fuse, the monsters take, like, 8 years to come out of the ground, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, this one has this wind up on this spear ability that you know is gonna fucking kill you in tier 16 maps with, like, damages
Mhm.
extra mods. And there's, like, no timing to it at all. It's like spear in your face, spear in your face. There's no, like, giant crackling, like, lightning, and then he, like, lets it off or something like the Templar ones arguably have enough lead time that you can kind of look for it as long as you don't get, like, off screen by it. But
Yeah.
these guys are, like, super fast on their turnaround, so it's like we gotta find some sort of balance between, like, the overall timings of the mechanics themselves, the monsters, the monster attacks, and then how clear they are in general. Because, like,
Yep.
there's just they just never quite get that timing right.
I'm like, do they even are they even trying to get this timer? Like, you know what? They're probably like, they'll just speed out of here anyways with their damn quicksilvers. Let them get it. Like probably, honestly.
Is it I mean, every single
Quicksilver
almost
right
every
out.
single league has some sort of pass like that where some monster they just, like, didn't either the visual effect wasn't clear enough, there wasn't enough, like, area of effect indicators, like, the red wall from the
Mhm.
Val guys in Legion was, like, a notorious one where there was, like the guy casted it pretty much immediately, there was no, like, indication that it was on its way, and then it was very visually difficult to discern, and then it would just
Mhm.
run over you for, like, 4,000,000,000 damage, like, roughly
Yeah.
4,000,000,000, and then they had to, like, go, "Oh, whoops, that's not right." It's like
Yeah.
how many times has that happened in a release?
Every time?
I
Every
think it's been
time.
about every time there's been one thing where they're like, "Oops, that killed you just a little too fast. Sorry
Yeah.
about that."
Uh,
The
yeah,
one
so
that I had
that's
the most fun with as far as, like, just laughing at how absurd it was, like, the roided out Cyrus mobs. That was
Oh
hilarious. I had
god.
one chase me all the way around, like, the mausoleum map, like, I just did a big circle, and he was on my ass the entire time.
I feel
I was,
like
like, trying to get him stuck on corners and stuff, I couldn't get rid of him.
I have PTSD from when they introduced the banners with conquerors, and the banners could overlap, and then there were some like unkillable banners, which made like the monsters unkillable, and then like the whole area was just death. um. Okay. So we've talked about triggered skills costing mana, and we've talked about the flask rework. BK touched on it earlier, but support gems are getting reworked. Most of them are being nerfed. BK, do you want to go into that detail a little bit more?
Yeah, I've been one of the people that sort of argue case bases for certain support gems over others, and it's a sort of frustrating argument that I get into with like different members of the community where you go for something that offers some sort of utility over yeah, I guess the biggest example is like a pure SRS build, right? So like a pure SRS build just has SRS, maybe like the carrion golem too, but like there's no zombies, there's no AG, there's not like a whole bunch of other things to mitigate. So like you have to build some utility into the SRS to make up for the fact that you don't have like meat shields. So for example, like there's like the idea of using Empower, even though or sorry, Ruthless, even though multi-strike is higher damage, going for like that guaranteed stun and then having blind on hit on one of your ghastly jewels or something like that, like working in this utility to kind of like round out the skill that you're using to make it more advantaged, like more advantageous to use like these sorts of things. And so like I get in arguments all the time. It's like shit build creator, shit build guide writer, like multi strikes way better. They recommend ruthless, like what the fuck? And it's like I'm going to be happy to not necessarily have to have those arguments anymore. Like I'm sure this will happen because there's like this obsession with knowing what is best. Um, like,
oh,
what is the
dude.
Which
best? What
just
is the
means
highest damage? What is
numbers.
this? And so, like,
Yeah.
the fact that these sort of, like, support gems are getting, like, smooshed down a little bit, like, I'm excited for more
The
case-based uses. There
when
was
you're
another
playing
one
a
before
build.
where I would, favor and empower over I forget what other support gem, like, in the earlier days of
Mm.
SRS, because we started having these, like, arena-wide AoEs in the Elder encounter. So, like, he does the donut and explodes, right? You have to stand in the donut, but all of your SRS are basically nibbling on Elder's ass the entire time. And you're like, "Oh, well, that explosion just went off and completely wiped out all of my minions." A full minion wipe on a pure SRS build is death because, like, then you're behind the curve. You have to cast all the way back up to 20, and you're fighting attrition as far as, like, in the Uber Elder encounter, they're dying to projectiles, they're dying to the AoE blast, they're dying to this, they're dying to that. And so, like, the case used on that point in time was favoring Empower over Multi-Strike because they would have, like, essentially a higher health pool, and they wouldn't die as much to, like, the surrounding stuff, or maybe you put 3 points into, like, the all-res and physical mitigation, like, wheel that's over there between Templar and Witch, like, there was uses for, like, okay, like, yes, it is not the best damage, but they survive, and you don't have full minion wipes, which means the fight goes faster because of the situation that you're solving this problem that happens. So on paper, it looks worse, but in actual, like, use, it's better. And that's exciting to me. Like, I don't
But
know if I'm the only person that's excited about it, but I'm excited about
number
it.
not big.
I
Number not
know.
big.
Number
Bigger.
small. Why number
Number
small?
smaller?
Make number big again.
But number need be big. If not good, if not big. Only big number good. Yeah, no, I've definitely had that. I'm like, oh yeah, well it does this like utility thing, and they'll be like, but number smaller, number bigger if you use this one. I'm like, oh,
It's that whole
doesn't matter
notion
if
that
you're
only
dead.
like millions of DPS is the only way that you can play the game, instead of just like, hey
Yeah.
guys, like I know how much health pool this boss has, like I can kill it. The rest of it's for
Or
me,
it does
like
this
fun for
ailment,
me.
so having this thing, or like having blind against something that's going to be superior in this situation, or
Yeah.
even in a lot of situations, it has synergy with this other thing that I'm doing. We'll just like, no, number not big enough.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the caption for the thumbnail.
Great. Yes. Yes. No, I'm completely in the same. And even if I don't always have like a specific justification for why I'm doing it, besides it has this interesting interaction, or it has this other cool thing, maybe it's just like I want to go faster rather than hit harder for reasons I don't, but it is always frustrating to have those arguments when people are like, this is the only thing that's better, and these are the correct links. I hate when I hear that, when people are these are the correct links for that skill. I'm like,
I'm just
there's
saying,
no
do what you
wiggle
want,
room.
man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I want. You're gonna do what you
Mm.
want, and at the end of the day, we'll never speak again. It's fine. Totally
Oh
good.
man, I mean, I don't want to bring up a harsh discussion point, and but I kind of want to say that it's a little bit similar to like, when certain people want to control how other people do things in like everyday life, like you know
Mhm.
that top is too revealing, that skirt is too revealing, or no, you're wearing a hijab, I need to see more of your face, or something like that. It just
Who in
reminds
the
me.
hell is saying, "I need to see more of your face"? Like, "You'll see more of my finger, you bitch." Don't ever say that to me
I
again.
got something for you right here.
Yeah, I got something for you right here, buddy. Hold on, hold on. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
fuck. Oh my
It's the
god.
same
I
thing though. It's
wonder
like,
if there will be any rebalancing to utility though as well, to make some more, because I'm here for the weird interactions. I'm here for the interesting things. I want to be amused. I want the game to amuse me. And so I'm excited to see if there's going to be, I mean, obviously the explosive concoction has some pretty interesting, like it's on the surface very interesting, but I'm excited to see if there's any like cool new interactions between any of the existing utility supports that we have, and new skills, or even existing skills that we're getting. I just want to see, I want some spice. I don't really enjoy when the meta is like 4 builds.
I would agree and say that like it's almost required, or at least should be encouraged, because at this point in time, with them removing all of these different sources of physical mitigation and otherwise, like they stealth nerf the passive tree. Basalt flasks are now completely different. Like, why not roll some of that into support gems and give us the
Yeah.
ability to have like build things that way as well?
and especially with six link, like becoming a bigger thing in
Yeah, like
PoE2.
six link, like everything being six linked on the way with PoE too. Like, why can't we have like mitigation supports linked to our guard skills?
Yeah, seriously. That would be a way to have some more defensive
And
buffs,
where's
or
the
even just
goddamn
utility.
green guard skill? Okay, we got blue guard skill, we got red guard skills. Where's green guard skill? And don't
No
tell me
green.
that's not a guard skill.
You'll get a white guard skill before you're
DK,
gonna get the green guard skill.
green doesn't sell.
Green doesn't, yeah. Nobody likes green apparently.
I
Yeah,
want
give
to.
me fort on my guard, by the way. Let me just steel skin fort. I like that.
Ooh.
I want to say. I want to follow like a little brainworm. So my thinking is, if they do, like, I'm trying to picture the end state, like a possible different version of Path of Exile. you nerf everything so that it's slower, so that like the fights feel harder but then more rewarding when you win, including endgame. Because it's slower, you get more XP because it's more of an achievement to finish it, which means you don't need to repeat it as much. So the amount of repetition is reduced. And also you have like boss health or monster health at a point where the amount of damage required is lower, but the whole thing is more rewarding. And then finally, when the thing is dead, because it took you much longer and you're not doing it as much, then the items should probably be more rewarding as well. Is that what we're going for? That's what I'm hoping these reactions and these changes are like foreshadowing or forecasting or heralding.
Ideally, I think so.
Because that sounds
Particularly
good,
the last point.
But the in-between stage, to me, I'm not sure how much patience I'm going to have to get to that point.
Yeah, they're gonna have to step it down bit by bit, and hopefully, I don't know. I'm hoping that the end point as we approach PoE 2 is like not necessarily a compromise, but I have reservations and concerns, and hopefully they are open to hearing them in constructive ways, not like Reddit bitching ways.
I bet we're gonna have a bit of an awkward haircut phase. You know,
Oh, me
it's
growing
gonna
out my
feel a
shaved
little
head.
funky for a while. We're gonna get bangs, you know, it's just gonna be a little weird, and then it's gonna work out. We'll figure out the right way to do it, and it'll be better.
Here who is
But
coming out of
yeah,
lockdown.
yes.
We'll see. We'll see how it all goes. My guys know my immediate thoughts. I'm very jaded, skeptical, but I can't until I see actual numbers and get to play it. Like, I don't know.
I think skepticism is good though because you've been playing longer than all of us and you've seen the game take this journey over time. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like listening to people that can like sort of that have been around long enough to see far enough in advance. Like I think that your skepticism is good and healthy for the game as a whole.
yeah,
I think it's
and
representative of like, you know, the people that have been there the longest and that have probably the most valuable things to say about where the game should go.
yeah, they have done a lot of things that I was like, no, I'll hate this, and then I was like, actually, this is really good. I don't know why I hated it initially, so I'm really going like I'm hoping for that kind of experience, especially when it comes to the League expedition itself. I'm actually not as worried. Uh, the nerfs, I'm not as worried about. Not that much. More like I'm just worried for my own personal builds and all that work I did this week.
Mm.
That might be for nothing, but
That's fair.
yeah, yeah.
So,
That's really it.
Belle, may I ask you a
Mhm.
question, but I'd love to hear from Noodle and BK as well.
Mm.
The way Chris was talking and the way that they're going about these changes and the messaging and such, and then also like the
Mhm.
bit that we do know, does it seem different, fresh, like a little bit more driven to you? I know that's kind of a leading question. I'm asking it that way because that was my impression from my meager like 4 years playing the game.
I'm gonna say that this is probably the most that I've always believed, I always know that Chris and the crew have a vision, and sometimes they tease a little bit of it, but they're very cryptic about their stuff and what they do. Like, they will just take a huge amount of backlash from the community, and then the next patch, they're like, "Take this, bitches." And they're like, "Oh, it's so amazing. Oh my god, I love Chi Chi Chi." You know, like, that's what happens. Yeah, they're willing to just take and deal with the beating, the abuse from the community, all to push their vision. So, if anything, it sounds to me like he shared a little more with us than we normally get, which
Okay.
I appreciate because it gives us an idea of where the company sees their game, although I've always suspected they kind of saw it that way.
Brittle.
I like that Chris was making jokes the entire time, but at the same time, I feel like they should tell him probably not to joke about certain things because he was making like yeah, it's completely dead and just jokes like that too. I can't exactly remember what it was, but he's like, oh yeah, we've nerfed that into the ground or something like that. It's like, no, Chris, don't say that. People take you literally. Like, we can tell it's sarcasm, but some people can't. Don't say that. Like, instantly 40 threads pop up. Meh, right. But I don't know.
Oh man.
I'm interested in this specific design manifesto because it seems like they were being purposefully like kind of muted with what they were showing skill wise, design wise, everything. Like we sort of noticed together that, like the skill gems that they showed like an unsupported one, so it looked like crap. And then like they kind of showed like a light to mid investment one, but never really showed the end game. And I feel like we've had that sort of like backlash the last couple of leagues where starting with like crackling lance all the way through like 40 skill reworks and all this other kind of stuff where they're really taking to heart the fact that like, all right, to some degree hype in press cycles is important, but if you can't deliver, then it's ultimately worse than trying to just generate the hype. So I feel like they're being really reserved this time around. And I'm hoping in return that also means a more, I don't know, immersive isn't the right word, but like a more conversational sort of balanced manifesto
I
where
would
there's
like
like
it to have it
actual.
early.
Hmm?
Can we have it like on Fridays? The Balance Manifesto, please?
Right.
Can we just have it like a week before the league launches, please? So I'm not in crunch time.
I think they said Tuesday, which is a little earlier than usual.
Wait,
That's only the manifesto. The patch notes are on Wednesdays, right?
Yeah.
I don't
So
remember.
I
One of
thought it
them
was.
was
yeah.
Tuesday.
I'm gonna have a look.
Yeah, so that's I would like that.
Noodle,
I would like
what were
that.
you gonna say?
I don't really have that much to add. I think that Chris is a great presenter and I think he's very funny, but I got very caught up in being totally underwhelmed by all the skills, and I
Yeah.
totally also get why they didn't showcase them as being, like, yeah, we don't want you to put impulses on your crackling lance again. We don't want that. But I kind of got lost in the I don't really know where this is going, and I don't know. He's a great presenter. I love his attitude and his humor, even though, yeah, I could see how joking about some stuff could get some people very upset. But I really, well, for one, I had a work call like pretty quick after the Q&A started, which was a bummer. But uh, with the skill gems, I just got completely lost trying to picture what it could look like being better, but not having a very strong imagination for that kind of stuff and being like, okay, I guess I'm waiting for patch notes.
Mm.
It would be really cool, like in some distant future where POB is actually rolled into the game where like you see a skill being presented and then you can click a button and download that like skill and look at it for yourself. So there's no
Oh.
like, what supports is it? What is the guy wearing? What is this, and that? Like, it's just like, there you go. You can see it, and then you can make your determination right then and there. But I don't know.
Yeah, because if you know for sure, you're like, oh, this has like literally no gear and
Yeah,
no
you can look at it and be like,
supports.
all right, this is like day 4 gear. All right, cool.
Yeah.
This is definitely something I can work with and take it in this direction or that direction.
Mm.
Yeah, it would be a lot easier to understand like what I'm looking at because I know in my soul that they're showing me stuff that is not well geared and not well leveled and probably not a 6 link, but like I don't totally know. And so
Yep.
I'm just sitting there like that doesn't look good and I don't know why yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Rage Vortex.
Bone Shatterers. I just can't get the image out of my head of them literally having 4 monsters and blood aqueducts, and he hit it twice, and it took 2 hits to kill a
Um,
regular monster. I
Noodle,
was like,
because you brought up Bone Shatter again. When I first, like, when I saw the first iteration, like the first clip of Bone Shatter happening, I thought, like, because of the hit, his bones had popped out of his clothes, and then I realized that it was the like drowned dead soldiers that are walking around with like arrows
yeah,
sticking out of him already, and I was
already
like,
bones
but
out.
it would be really cool if Bone Shatter actually made all of their bones stick out.
That'd be pretty cool. Don't do that because we already have enough graphic, like, and calculation issues. We don't need that yet with this current situation, but it would be cool. No, it just I was baffled.
Introducing new open fracture technology. Render 30 T-bones on every single monster.
Shit.
Can you imagine?
That's
Um,
pretty
Just
advanced.
like, "Oh,
wait.
no, I have too many bones. I
Okay,
can't see
so behead
anything."
support for me, I'm like, I don't know if this happened in the demo, but I feel like it's not a behead support unless every single one of your monsters is now lying on the ground with their head detached from their corpse.
That's fair, but
And
I
then it
highly
has to
doubt.
render objects instead of one. No thanks, pass.
No, yeah, no.
Yeah, well, I've got standards.
I'm not immersed.
My shit.
Literally unplayable. It doesn't pop their heads off.
What if you used bone shatter with behead? What happens? Where do the
Their
bones go?
bones stick out and their head is detached.
Okay, alright. We'll see.
And if there's bleed attached, they're also bleeding.
My brain just full on imagined that realistically, and I'm seriously disturbed right now at its own thought.
I imagined
Like,
it too,
oh
but I
god.
imagined it in PoE like graphics, so it wasn't as
I wish
horrifying.
that I imagined it in PoE graphics, but I did not. I've been watching a lot of mob shows lately, so I did it to myself.
Oh.
All right, okay. I feel like this episode has come, like we've come through everything that we wanted to cover, but I want to give everyone a chance to pose any final topics, and then we'll just do like a sort of lightning round, like how you feeling about Friday/Saturday vibe check. So, have I missed anything? Is there anything that you want to bring up before we do the vibe check?
I guess we didn't really talk about in depth like the different systems that the NPCs have. And I just want to say really quickly that the only one that interests me very much is the guy who has incremental crafting changes on a base that you purchase from him. Because I'm kind of similar to BK in that I don't really like bartering and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, even if they're an NPC. And I'm very dissimilar to Vel in that Gamba scares me and I don't want to play with Gamba Lady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't wanna do that. Obviously, lore guy, I hate him, but I'm going to probably focus on that the most. But yeah, I was like, "Okay, the crafting one sounds cool," and I thought it was interesting that they're trying to introduce this, and I'm like, "What does it mean?" You know, is this gonna be a thing they're just trying, or is this, like, things that are gonna happen for existing NPCs in the future, or what?
I
I thought
like
it was kinda weird, but it's cool.
I like the idea of generally, like, making crafting sort of like something that's found in a bunch of different ways so that you encounter it more often, which maybe means that combined with the new loot system, like, maybe you're a little bit more self-reliant. So they're experimenting with, like, ways that you interact with, different vendors and crafting options and tables
Mhm.
and what sort of data that, like, what do you interact with and what you don't, like, what bases do you go for, etcetera. Like, to then understand, like, if they create these systems that sort of lean people away from trade and lean them more towards being self, sustaining, like, what do those systems have to be and what do they have to encompass?
And I just had a thought, but the upselling guy, it depends on exactly how it works. I don't really completely understand everything yet, but it could also be a way to kind of sort of what Harvest tried to do in terms of teaching people crafting.
And incremental improvements,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Why do we gotta get more splinters? Why's it gotta be more splinters?
It's
I don't
like
even
that's
care
the
that they
one,
all
yeah.
stack.
I'm with
They
you on
said
that
there
one
were like
too.
there's like I saw 2 stacks of the same splinters together, and yeah, they stacked, but
Yeah,
He
I clocked
specified
that
two
too.
piles. I'm
It's
like,
horrendous, but worse
bro, I don't
I don't
because
understand
you're
even
why we
just
need to
care.
click
need different
twice.
types of horrendous coins.
We don't need to click twice.
And
That's
they
the worst
all
part.
want different splinters? Like,
Yeah.
can they suck my pee-pee? No. No splinters! I'm done!
At the very
Done with
least,
them, I have
one splinter
800!
for all of them.
Can't they
They
Please.
should
all
have
just
just
have the
yeah.
same splinters?
Yeah, it should have just relic generic currency.
Yeah, can
instead
we
of
just
all the
talk
different
about how
types.
different
Rogue Harbor had the
artifacts.
rogue coins and it was the same
Yeah,
coins were
I'm
all
with yep.
13 or whatever the number was.
It's just so the splinters, dude. I don't mind about the bartering. I love to barter. And haggle. I find the crafting guy like KekW, you brought back master crafting guys, but like one guy to do it, hilarious. I guess they realized that they do, in fact, they should maybe do something like that. The Gamba one.
Why
That's
not?
your lady.
Click on every leather belt. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, why? Just check it out. Just check it out. You know, just see what happens. I'll probably lose a lot. That's actually how I first played Ultimatum. It's just losing a lot of ultimatums with the Gambas. So
I wonder how weighted different people's splinters are. Like, what if it's impossible for me to get upsell guys splinters and I'm stuck doing gambas and haggling the whole time?
What if you could trade the splinters to get
Yeah.
different splinters?
Well, that would be better because you may only want to interact with one guy, right? But like generally,
I can't imagine the splinters wouldn't be tradable.
They've got to be tradable. It's got to.
they probably won't be, guys.
Don't even joke about that. Are you
No.
All right,
serious?
this is
It's
a
gonna be
terrible
tradable.
topic. Okay.
Guess what? They're not even going to go in our currency tab. We're going to have to find a new tab for
Well,
them, I bet you.
No,
Yeah, okay,
there's a locker.
that's true.
Isn't there a locker?
Yeah,
There's a locker, and the locker has affinity, so
Ugh.
you can put them just into your regular stash, and then it goes into
Oh,
the
now I have to
special stash and
micromanage
with
a
heist as well.
locker.
Fast forward, it's the year 2026, and hideouts are just like boxes surrounding a map device with the stash underneath the map device, and all of the lockers surround you.
We have a
We're all just
crafting
hoarders
we have
now.
a crafting bench, a harvest crafting bench, and then several other iterations of crafting benches.
And you've got a
Stacks of
Stonehenge
newspaper.
of boxes around you, which you use to calibrate your RNG and tell future.
Okay, all right. BK, did you have a topic? Anything that you thought might have been missed?
No, I feel pretty happy with what we went through today.
All right. Well, vibe check. How are you guys feeling about Leak Start and this new content and changes? In 25 words or less. No more than 25 words. I will count.
I'll go first. Panic and excitement. There you go.
Okay.
I feel indifferent, which I feel is potentially the worst, and also Danig is not the lore master I am. Back off.
Okay.
It's not Ultimatum League. No, but I'm actually exciting. I had to go for my spit take. You didn't drink any water today. I couldn't get it.
I did drink water. I wasn't drinking as much though, so that I would only have to peep
I couldn't
once.
get it. First
I'm
episode
sorry.
of the last 3.
I know. It's sad. That is actually kind of sad. I didn't even think
I'm gonna
about
have
that. I
to
mean, you
be
made
on
me
the
laugh,
floor.
but you didn't time it.
Think about my life.
Okay. I will say I wasn't looking forward to the league, but I am super excited about a meta shakeup if it actually delivers on shaking the meta. But that also fills me with panic and fear. But I hope it's like a good kind of feeling. Okay, so I feel like that's a really good note to like close off this episode. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. I guess we got you hook, line, and sinker, and we'll catch you on the next one. We will figure out when that is going to be. So, for the time being, bye bye.
Bye bye.